YouTube channel. So if you're new here, I post weekly about careers in psychology, being an aspiring clinical psychologist and getting into clinical psychology. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then please give my channel a subscribe. Thank you. So today I'm going to be talking about what you can do with a psychology degree. I think with the time of the year that it is, many undergraduate students are kind of coming towards the end now of their third year, and it is kind of around this time I find that, well, when I was doing my undergraduate, that I was starting to panic about what do I do after this. You know, you've only got a few months left of your undergraduate degree, which will fly by. And a lot of people are kind of starting to think about applying for jobs, or, you know, what could they go into. So I kind of wanted to make this video all about, you know, what can you do with a psychology degree. Maybe you're thinking about applying to do psychology at university, but you're kind of thinking, well, if I do that, you know, what would be next for me after that? What could I go into after that? So I hope this video kind of covers all of those questions. I'm going to be splitting this video into 3 parts. So the first section is talking about being a psychologist. The second part is talking about other mental health sectors that you could work in, and the third part is talking about, you know, everything else, something completely different, and, you know, the skills that you could learn on your psychology degree, and what else you could go into that maybe hasn't got anything to do with mental health or anything to do with being a psychologist. So firstly, I'm going to talk about being a psychologist. You can be a psychologist in many different areas. And normally these involve having to do either a master's or a doctorate, so some kind of further education after you finish your undergraduate degree. So, you know, if you're thinking about wanting to be a professional psychologist, it's worth thinking about, right, well, I'm potentially going to have to do a master's, or I'm going to need experience in a certain area, or I'm going to need to start thinking about, you know, when I would want to apply for the doctorate and things like that. So there are many different areas that psychologists work in. So the first one that I've talked a little bit already about on this channel is being a clinical psychologist. So these tend to work in mental health, but not always. There's also forensic psychologist, a counselling psychologist, a sports psychologist, health psychologist, and an educational psychologist. So like I said, these all involve some level of postgraduate study. So I will leave a link below, postgraduate qualifications that you would need to go into it. Now in this video, I'm not going to go through all the different types of psychologists in great depth. I kind of just want to talk about all the different things that you could potentially go into briefly. But if there was something that you were particularly interested in, you know, maybe I could make a full video on that in the future. But for this video, I'm just kind of going to talk briefly about the different areas and the different places that you could work after your psychology degree. So I think that a common area that a lot of people who study psychology want to go into is mental health. And this isn't for, you know, everybody. Not everyone that does psychology wants to go into mental health, of course not. But I thought I would do a whole section on mental health related careers that you could kind of research more into if you think that that would be something that you would be interested in. Firstly, of course, I'm going to talk about being a psychological wellbeing practitioner, or a children and young people psychological wellbeing practitioner, because that's what I do. So this is something that you can do with a psychology degree. I've already done a whole video on what a PWP is and how to do the interview of a PWP, so I'll link them both below too. And working as a PWP or a CY PWP are both careers in their own right, and by doing that training program, there is some room for development. For example, looking at high intensity training or going on then to be a CBT therapist. So that is something that you can definitely go into with a psychology degree. That's what I'm doing at the moment, and it's working in mental health, either in charities or in the NHS or in other services, working one-on-one with individuals with low-level mental health issues. Something else that you can do with a psychology degree that is sometimes based in mental health is a healthcare assistant. I worked as a healthcare assistant in CAMS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health, and that was a mental health healthcare assistant position. You also get healthcare assistants on wards, inpatient wards, forensic wards. So these are, I think healthcare assistant is such a big role, and not every healthcare assistant position is equal. So definitely doing your research into, which one you'd like to go into. But a lot of different sectors have healthcare assistants or mental health support workers, are often quite similar, not always, but they can often be similar job role titles. So looking for those kind of job roles on the NHS. Recovery support workers as well can be another similar kind of job role that you are effectively doing the same thing. And all of those job roles are really interesting, really exciting. Like I said, I worked as a healthcare assistant and I really, really enjoyed it. I think it can be a really good first job out of doing your degree if you're looking then to build up that experience. Another job role you could think about is working as a mental health nurse. Now I know you can do a degree in mental health nursing, but I think you can also do like a conversion course after you've done a degree in psychology, if then you think actually that would be something that you would be interested in. And finally, psychotherapists or CBT therapists. And again, these require some level of training after you've finished your degree, but they are something to think about as well. And they're also, mental health related. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list of absolutely everything that you can do, and there are so many that I've probably missed off. They're just a few key things that I was thinking of, and of the kind of things that I kind of thought about when I came to the end of my undergraduate degree, and that I think could be really useful to look into. But of course there are so many other job roles out there. And it's always worth just kind of having a look on NHS jobs or Indeed or other job sites to kind of see, what job roles are out there that you think that you could do. Now, for the final section, I'm going to talk about job roles that you might not think of immediately when you think of doing a psychology degree. And if you're kind of coming towards the end of your psychology degree and you're thinking actually you don't want to work in mental health, you don't want to become a professional psychologist, obviously that's absolutely fine. And the skills that you learn on your psychology degree can be used in a multitude of different jobs that perhaps aren't directly related to mental health or directly related to being a psychologist. For example, throughout your degree, you've done quite a high amount of statistics, and you will have done, research because you will have done your dissertation in your third year. And these lend themselves really, really well for a research assistant position. I know that these are also really highly sought after. But that is something else that you could go into, thinking about going into research as a different kind of sector. Something else that you could think of going into could be teaching or working as a special educational needs and disabilities teacher or teaching assistant. I did that for a while when I finished my masters. I worked in schools as behavioural support and special educational needs and disability support. So that's another thing that you could kind of think about. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was graduate schemes, and there are so many different graduate schemes out there. Two that I'm going to mention are the NHS graduate scheme and the gov.co.uk fast stream graduate schemes. And a lot of these graduate schemes just ask for you to have a degree. Some of them do ask for you to have a specific degree, and some of them might ask for you to have a social sciences degree, which also you could look into. But a lot of them just ask for you to have a degree in any subject, and these government schemes are in a lot of different areas, including finance and marketing, and things like that that you might not have originally thought of. So I definitely recommend checking those out, and I'll link them in the description box below as well. Another job role that you could think about is working as a social worker. There is a social worker graduate scheme out there as well. And again, I think they kind of just ask for you to have a social sciences degree. So that could be something worth looking into. As well as I think the police do a graduate scheme now where they don't ask for you to have a specific degree, and you can work up to being a detective. So that could be something to look into. I think sometimes we get so bogged down, like, oh, well, I have to do something that's related to my degree. But that's not true. And actually, if you have a degree, sometimes graduate schemes or jobs just ask for you to have a degree, and it's not, they're not that bothered what that degree is in. And if you're kind of thinking about, you know, the skills and things like that you've learned, like time management and presentation skills and things like that, all of them lend themselves to a multitude of different jobs. And like I said, you know, this is in no way a full list of every single job that you could go into, because there are just so many. But I thought it would be useful maybe to mention some of the ones that I was thinking about, and maybe some of the ones that perhaps you hadn't thought about. So I hope that this was useful, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!